take a walk on some nice cool sand, drink some jelly water or a killer bee. When it comes to my island, you're a stranger once, you must believe me. Where else in the world you get this immediately? Authentic love is given to each and everybody. Nowhere.
So good afternoon. We're here for yet another episode of Dem Say, where we have conversations with our experts within the society and who are friends of the society. Today we are here with Richard Matthias. He is a master beekeeper and he's joining us from St. Lucia. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Fine. Nice, thanks for having me.
Yes.
I'm visiting here from St. Lucia as part of a regional project financed by GEF SGP UNDP. And it's a South-South Biodiversity and Apiculture project. We are working with 6 Caribbean islands and 1 island in the South Pacific, Samoa. So in the Caribbean, we are working with St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago.
Excellent.
So it's an interesting project of helping to try to restore biodiversity within the Caribbean. Especially with a special emphasis on apiculture, because the plants and other angiosperms require pollination, which the bees do.
Great. So we're talking about beekeeping and we just want to bring it down to the level of the average listener.
Sure.
And what would you say, why would you say beekeeping is important?
Beekeeping is essential for your general biodiversity. And not just beekeeping alone, all pollinators are very important to the well-being of the ecosystem that we all live in. Without the input of pollinators, a lot of your food you wouldn't get the food. At least 30% of your food you wouldn't have. And then you also have to look into consideration the pollination services these bees and other pollinators give to other non-bearing crops that you would eat, like animals and birds and other organisms on the planet we consume. So it's very important that we have a balanced ecosystem that supports all pollinators, not just bees. Bees are the most famous, right? But there's flies and wasps and bats and ants. All these things and birds are also pollinators. So it's important that we look at the whole cross-section and try to protect as many of these species as possible.
So we shouldn't swat those flies when we see them.
Well,
they're doing a good job.
Well, it all depends on the type of fly. There's flies and there's flies.
Understood. So if someone like myself decides I want to go into beekeeping, what are like the top 3 things you would say that I need to do to get started?
The first thing you should do is join your local beekeeping club or beekeeping organization. Tag along with find a mentor, somebody that can show you the ropes, introduce you to bees, because it can be quite an expensive business, and you want somebody to bring you in before you go and spend a lot of money and then you think, oh gosh, that's not. So join a club or a beekeeping organization, learn about apiculture, learn the little bits and pieces about bees, try and get as much information as you can off the internet. We have online through this GEF program that we're doing. We're launching an online beekeeping program, so you can learn everything you want to know about bees. You go online in a Caribbean context. It's not just in a.
Nice.
Normally, when you find these programs online, they're very specific to North America or Europe. This is very specific to the Caribbean and the expectations of a Caribbean beekeeper.
Okay, so you mentioned that it could be very expensive to get started. Is it profitable once you get into it?
Oh, definitely.
Like, how can you make a profit from something like beekeeping?
Well, I mean, harvesting the honey is obviously the low-hanging fruit, the easy option. There are other things that you can do in beekeeping. You can harvest propolis. Propolis is very good antiseptic. It's the active ingredient for cough syrups, originally in olden days. You can get into collection of pollen, as well as the crystal wax, we help make cosmetic products and hair products and facial products and all kind of different products. So there are a lot of products you can work with, or other products other than honey that you can extract from the hives to support a life.
Okay. I know that there is a push to get more youths and women into the agricultural field.
Definitely.
How would you go about encouraging that group to get involved in beekeeping?
Yeah, definitely. From an apicultural beekeeping standpoint, there's been a lot of people kind of stay away from agriculture generally because they think it's very low tech, and it can't encompass all the technology, but they'd be very surprised. One of the things that I have worked with, and the organization I'm a part of in St. Lucia, the Ionola Apiculture Collective, IAC, we've augmented many different aspects, and one of the things that we've tried to incorporate is science. A lot of beekeepers are very much based on the craft, on the things they learn through everyday trial and error. But what we've tried to do in IAC is to also capture the craft and the science, marry the two together, so that we look at things from a scientific perspective, not just on the things, the anecdotal stuff that we know. So it's very important. So if you work with the science, we've got projects running in St. Lucia where we have hive monitors measuring the temperature and the humidity of the hive. I can log in on my phone or on my computer, and I can see exactly if my hive is at optimal temperature, optimal humidity, and I can say, okay, if there's something wrong, I can pick up the phone and tell one of my guys, hey, go and check out hive XYZ at this location that has a problem. Right, so there are different ways where we've tried to integrate the Internet of Things, IoT, into the agriculture industry. One of the things that we hear in some kids in Nevis, the Federation, is to establish queen rearing sites of the islands. So one of the things that, as we've done our regional survey, beekeepers from St. Kitts and Nevis, we complete the survey. One of the things that was identified at the survey was number one was there was a lack of funding to help them to establish their apiaries and to expand, and those that were established for them to expand. And the second number one thing was access to training and access to queens, because once you learn how to make queens, you can expand the colonies, the number of colonies you have exponentially. So to help to increase the production of honey in the Twin Island Federation, we are going to establish queen rearing apiaries on each of the islands, so that there'll be an abundance of queens available to beekeepers, so that if they need a queen, or if their queen and one of their colonies dies or something happens to it, they can replace it quickly. If they want to divide a colony and make a new colony, they could get a queen and introduce that queen, so they would have 2 hives instead of 1 hive. Or if they've got 5 hives, they can make 10 hives. If they've got 10 hives, they can make 20 hives, because the queens are available for them to do so. So once they have that facility in place, you should see our volume of honey hopefully increase and availability in St. Kitts and Nevis, and hopefully the price will go down a little bit to make it a little more affordable for the people of the Federation.
See, you just mentioned something there about creating queens, and I am by no means a bee expert of any sort, and so my impression was that the bees themselves select their queens. Would you say that there are any other common misconceptions or practices among general beekeepers that people just wouldn't know?
Yeah, there's a few, but we don't have enough time.
Just give me one.
We don't have enough time to talk about all. But what I can say is that the queens make the bees make the queens. We just direct their course.
Oh.
So we will create what we call a queenless colony, and then we will give that queenless colony lots of potential queen cells for it to develop. So because they're desperately seeking a queen, They say, hey, look, queen cells. Let's make as many queens as possible. All right, so we kind of trick them into making more than they require. And because the colony has got a lot of bees in it, but they're desperately queens. So they're really desperately seeking for a queen to continue the cycle of bees. Because the lifespan of a worker bee is only between 35 to 42 days.
Oh my, that's shocking.
And a queen will lay, maybe in the peak of the season, maybe 1,000 to 1,200 eggs every day. So she's an egg laying machine. So this is why you need to make good queens.
Excellent. That's some interesting facts right there. What do you think is the quirkiest fact that you know about beekeeping?
The quirkiest fact about beekeeping. Everything you've seen in the Disney movies is not true.
You don't say. I thought that was facts.
No, everything is not true.
Oh man.
Drones don't go out and do anything. Drones are luckiest. Drones have only one task in the hive. Is to spread the genetic information by mating with Apiculture bees. They don't do anything else other than that.
That's the entire life, mating.
That's it.
I feel
and
like
only about 1% of them ever get to mate. And another one is that the majority of the bees in a hive are females. So like about 95% are females, and there's only a small percent.
So you're saying that's a very happy 5%. Is in that high?
Yeah, but only 1% of that 5% will ever get to mate with a queen.
Oh.
So it depends on how you look at it. If it's the Uncle Paul theory, and the happy uncle that sits in the corner is always drunk, I guess. Yeah. He's definitely the bee. But if it's if he's something a little more than that, it might be complicated. But I think that's one of the misconceptions, and I think. The deeper you go into beekeeping and apiculture, it's a very interesting field. You learn a lot about nature. You spend a lot of time out in the sun, nature, finding interesting locations. It's good for your health. Breathing in the air from the bees is very good for you. It helps you with your asthma and stuff like that. And it's also that you'll find that there's a lot of interest internationally in bees. People, we in St. Lucia, we run tours with the local cruise ships, and we have a nice apiary that we've set up, which is pretty close, but isolated from people, and they can come. We do candle making. We give them a little tour on pollinators and explain the pollinators, and then we do a little candle making with them with beeswax and their own individual scents. We make a nice scented candle for people. And while the wax is hard, we go down into an apiary, and we show the bees, we show the guests the different types of bees and types of bees are in the hive, and they get to taste a little honey directly from the hive. When they come back, they go with their candles, and they're all good as gold.
That sounds lovely. Well,
yeah. So I'm hoping to replicate that here for you.
I think that would be excellent, and I just want to thank you again for sitting down and having this conversation with me, as well as helping to facilitate the revival of beekeeping in Nevis and the Federation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
I said, there's no place I'd rather be.